The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro. The American Red Cross says every 2 seconds a person in this country needs life-saving blood. A single blood donation can help multiple people. But donations are at their lowest level in years, and they typically drop off in summer. Tonight, we put blood donation and its benefits in focus. Joining us are Laura Burt, the Executive Director of the American Red Cross Central Pennsylvania chapter, and Jen Custer, who's a volunteer with the Red Cross and a blood donor. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Laura, I know at times the American Red Cross declares a blood emergency. Why is that?
The need for blood is constant, and sometimes we're not getting enough blood in that we need to send out to hospitals. So typically there's a couple times a year that the Red Cross will issue a blood shortage. One of those times is right after the holidays in January. Winter weather can derail people's blood donation process. We can have schools out of session, which decreases the blood supply because a lot of our blood donors are schools. And because of the holiday season, people are just naturally busy. And then another time of year that we see the blood supply take a little bit of a dip is as we approach the summer season. Schools, again, are letting out for this year. School districts and colleges and universities typically host a lot of blood drives with us. And then also with summer camp season, vacations, we will see people just naturally busier, and blood donation just isn't top of mind.
I was going to say it's not something everyone's thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you get them to think about it?
We go on the news and talk about it.
I like that. We like talking about it. Jen, why the need for blood? Why is it so critical?
Well, Susan, it's blood is the liquid of life. It's drastically important to our existence, and there are so many emergent cases on why we need to donate blood. It can be for trauma victims that are going into the hospital that need emergency supplies, that require emergency procedures and surgeries. And then there's also elective procedures or patients that have cancer or hematological disorders that require transfusions pretty regularly. And when there's a national critical shortage like we're in right now, those people that have that are considered more elective and they have to wait, patients that have sickle cell anemia, for example, they typically require multiple units transfused at a time. And when we are in a national shortage, they are only able to get a fraction of what they typically need. And for anybody that has any loved ones, they know the pain that they can endure when they're not able to get the full transfusion that's required for them.
People you might not think of, patients who need blood on a regular basis. We might add that you're also an LPN, so you know about this. What made you become a blood donor?
I've been donating blood for about 15 years. I just know that, it's something small that you can do. It's such a small gesture that you can do to give back to the community, but in such a large way. The gratitude for those that actually need to have that blood transfused, and you just never know who that could be. It could be, someday it could be your loved one or your neighbor, but just being able to give back and help a stranger that, it's just such a fulfilling, rewarding experience from the beginning to the end. And if you donate with the American Red Cross, we actually have a system that we utilize that you're able to see where your blood donation was used. So
yeah, we'll talk more about that when we come up with our second segment. But Laura, it is something very simple that people can do.
It's really one of the easiest ways to give back, just like Jen said. Donation time from start to finish is typically an hour, so it really doesn't take a large part of your day. We at the Red Cross try to make it very easy for people to donate, meet them where they are, have a lot of drives scattered about our footprint, and we try to make it as comfortable as possible.
Who can donate?
A variety of people can donate, and what I would like to say is that if you have any questions about eligibility, we have an entire FAQ section on our redcrossblood.org website. You can scroll down, look at all of your circumstances, and you can see if you're eligible to donate.
And that includes most people are probably eligible, aren't they?
Most who are healthy and able are eligible to donate. And like I said, it's just such an easy way to give back to someone in need. To Jen's point, a stranger that you don't know. How fulfilling.
And you might need blood someday. So
oh, certainly.
You never know. As Jen mentioned, there is a way to track the blood you donate to the American Red Cross. We'll talk more about that coming up.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We're talking about the need for blood donation with two people from the American Red Cross, Laura Burke, who's with the Central Pennsylvania chapter of the American Red Cross, and Jen Custer, who's a volunteer with the Red Cross. Thank you both again for being here. Laura, I guess the big thing here is that blood, like milk, has a shelf life.
It does, and it's an important thing to know. You can donate whole blood every 56 days, so that's roughly up to 6 times per year. And we encourage someone who gives blood that they should continually give blood throughout the year because it's needed every 56 days.
Does it ever get thrown out because it's not, because it's beyond that time, or it's used up? You're saying because there's a shortage.
I'll defer to Jen, but I would say very rarely. Blood is since it's needed, and sometimes we can't meet that need, I would say very rarely thrown out.
Yeah, so to answer your question, at our blood drives, we have a couple different ways that you can donate. Typically, so when you go in for a red blood donation, it's only taking 1 pint of blood, or 1 unit, and that unit can actually be utilized up to 3 times. So that's up to 3 lives that you can save just with one blood donation. Then we also have a power red donation process where we have a cell separator, and that actually will take 2 units of blood, and it will go through our machine, and it will separate the plasma and the platelets, and then that will actually be reinfused back into you with some normal saline, and then those red blood cells will actually be directly transferred to a hospital for emergency use, and that's typically used, very, very short duration. There is no really shelf life discussion with that. That's able to be utilized firsthand.
And as you said, it's really simple. There's no pain. You don't feel ill after it, right?
So we do have, in the rare instance that does occur, that's why we have a nourishment center right afterwards that you can spend some time at, replenish some sugar. We give you some fluids just to make sure that you feel okay before leaving the premises.
And we mentioned there is a way, once you donate, to track your blood to see where it goes. How does that work?
This is one of my favorite features that the Red Cross offers. We have a blood donor app, and it's called just that. If you go to the App Store and whatever your smart device is and search for blood donor app, you can download that, and I encourage everyone who does that to use that for their blood donation appointments. What it does is it tracks your health history that is collected at each appointment, so you kind of have an idea of what your BP is, what your hemoglobin is, and it kind of tracks your health charts. What it also does is reminds you of your blood type. If you didn't know your blood type going in, that's okay. We'll track that blood type for you, and that will be collected in the app. And it'll also let you know, once you've given blood, where your blood is going. So it kind of takes you through the life cycle of collection, processing, storage, transfer, and then you see it to completion and see exactly what hospital system your blood impacts. And it's just truly incredible to see that once it's completed.
Good to see the results happening. Is any particular blood type needed more than others?
All blood types are needed, but if you have O negative, that's the universal blood donor, so that's able to be utilized by everybody. But we just encourage anybody to come in and donate blood. It doesn't matter what your blood type is, but most people do find that they don't know what their blood type is. So once you download our blood donor app and you've donated with us one time, your blood type will actually show in the app, and then you'll be able to see, because that power red donation that I mentioned to you earlier, that's typically used right for trauma victims, that does require actually specific blood types, which are O negative, O positive, A negative, and B negative. So not everybody can donate if you are B positive or A positive, but regardless, if you come in and donate blood with us, your blood will certainly be utilized in some way, shape, or form with a patient that needs a transfusion.
And I imagine if maybe you were told at one time you weren't eligible, you might now be eligible. Could that be the case?
Yeah, the FDA is always changing the requirements and the regulations around the blood supply, and that's something that we have a record of with our donor base. So if there was a chance you were deferred in the past and you're now eligible, you will be contacted by the Red Cross alerting you as so.
It's really interesting how this all works and how the need is so great.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I must say, I talked about the constant need for blood. We're always asking for anyone who, of course, is considering donating blood, not really sure about it. Go to redcrossblood.org, read about it. A lot of what you'll learn on our website will ease your mind about the process. And it may encourage you to become a regular blood donor. And then furthermore, if you're part of an organization, maybe a church or another fraternal organization or a company, and you're looking to make an impact in your community, host a blood drive with the Red Cross. It's fun, it's easy, and it's that direct give back that really does pay dividends.
I know Channel 8 is doing that, so it is a great thing to do. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, an emergency department physician talks about why having an adequate blood supply is crucial.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We're talking about blood donation with Dr. Michael Rehard. He's the Director of Emergency Services at Penn State Health, the Lancaster Medical Center, and also an emergency physician.
Yes, thank you.
I know you see all kinds of emergencies. Thanks so much for being here.
No, I really appreciate it, and I'm really passionate to talk about blood donation and the use of blood here in not just Lancaster County, but across the United States.
As an emergency department physician, what kind of need do you see for blood?
Yeah, so it's very critical, and right now we have a real shortage of blood donation. While we have an elderly population, we have a population that we have 500,000 people in the community. So, you know, we have people that have traumatic injuries, we have people that have bone marrow conditions where they don't make blood. And so from trauma to medicine, there's multiple areas of need for blood transfusions.
At what point do you determine that someone needs a blood transfusion?
Yeah, so one of the first things is the way they look, both physically, where they can be very pale. The conjunctiva underneath their eyes can be very light pink instead of the normal pink, and their vital signs are normal, or abnormal. They can be very tachycardic with low blood pressure, and patients will often say, "I feel dizzy," or "I feel weak," or "washed out."
So how does that work? You just give someone an infusion of blood?
No, I wish it was quite that easy. No, we do a thorough physical exam, we do vital signs, and then we generate what's called a differential diagnosis of what could be the causes of the paleness of the abnormal vital signs. And within that is prudent diagnostic testing, where we do a CBC and some blood work, and then get an idea if the patient does need blood or not. And we all talk about hemoglobins, and usually that hemoglobin number is somewhere around 7. So a man usually has a hemoglobin about 15 to 14, a woman somewhere around 13 because of menses and some things like that. So when you're at 7, that's about half your circulating blood volume.
Has it changed the protocol for giving a transfusion?
Yeah, so, you know, because of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, we've seen so much growth in really top-notch trauma care for hemorrhagic shock, meaning you're bleeding to death from gunshot wounds or bomb blasts. And so we found that the sooner the blood is administered, the more life-saving it can be for that person. Essentially what we do is the red blood cells carry oxygen to the tissues, and when the blood cells are not there to go, they become ischemic, or they lack the fuel to really drive them to make them work. If we can get those blood corpuscles back in there and deliver oxygen to those tissues, there's less traumatic injury in the long run.
So the sooner the better.
Sooner the better.
What about blood type?
Blood type, you know, there are special, some people have very special blood types, and other people have, you know, more common blood types. We like common blood types for transfusion because then there's not as much interaction. But I think the other thing to really talk about when we go back to the traumatic injuries is the fact that in the old days we would not transfuse blood in the field, meaning with an EMS agency. But right now Lifeline stocks blood in their helicopter. We can deliver it directly to the scene, and we're actually expanding that across Pennsylvania, where EMS agency will be delivering blood to the scene.
What's the advantage of that? Just again, the sooner the better?
Once again, getting those red blood cells in there, getting oxygen back to the tissue that's being deprived of it due to hemorrhagic shock.
Does it concern you, this shortage that is apparently happening because there are fewer donors, in terms of what if we should have a mass casualty incident here? Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, every day I worry about the next worst day, and I think all emergency physicians or trauma surgeons do. And so when, you know, we stock for today, but not for some terrible event like 9/11 or mass shootings, mass bombings. They're all a potential reality. So we all practice. We have the very best training, but at the end of the day, you can't prepare for everything, and blood is really, really a key part of the resuscitation. And when we see in some of these mass shootings, like at Pulse nightclub, they were very blessed to have multiple sources of blood available for those victims, and that doesn't always happen in every community.
Are you in touch with other hospitals and networks should that kind of casualty occur?
Yeah, we all train very closely together. We work very closely together. Hershey Medical Center is a level 1 trauma center. Lancaster General is a level 1 trauma center. And we all kind of move in those circles and plan for tragedy.
Yeah, well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Let's hope.
But stay with us and we'll talk about the safety of blood.
Sure.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We continue our conversation with Dr. Michael Rehard, an emergency department physician and the director of emergency services at Penn State Health Lancaster Medical Center. Again, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
How can we ensure that the blood that's donated is safe to transfuse?
Well, it's all screened to the very highest standards. We also select patients that have no underlying health conditions that would put them at risk for transmitting a viral infection like HIV or hepatitis C, hepatitis B. So we really select really healthy people. Then the blood is screened, both pre-screened with multiple questionnaires, and then tested at the time of.
And what are they screening for?
We're looking for HIV, hepatitis C, hepatitis B, multiple other viruses that could be life-threatening down the road for a patient that receives a transfusion.
Obviously, diseases that can be transmitted through blood.
Exactly, and that's why people don't get paid to donate blood. That's why it's something that's done out of the goodness of their heart, because we don't want to incentivize people to pay for blood or to get paid for blood donation.
Why do you think fewer people are donating blood?
Well, I think it really probably goes back to the pandemic, where we kind of socially distanced, and now we're really coming back after a couple years of being away from each other. I think another thing is just the fact that there's probably not enough public information or education that's necessary, and that's why I'm here today. We really desperately need blood. We have a critical shortage across the United States. We have an older population on anticoagulants that can precipitate bleeding, things like Coumadin or Eliquis, Xarelto. They're all life-saving medicines, but if somebody has an injury, they can bleed very, very briskly and then require transfusion. So we have an elderly population. We have people that get in car accidents, gunshot wounds, all that may need blood, and so you never know when you wake up in the morning how much blood you're going to need.
Yeah, and people that need them for health conditions. Is there any risk to donating blood to your health?
There's a very, very minimal risk, and it's probably not even worth discussing. The benefits far outweigh anything that would be bad. And the thing is it's 45 minutes out of your day. It's one stick, it's a little pinch, and 1 pint of blood is collected. You easily make it back up with a healthy body, and you can save a life just by that one hour of your day. It's
amazing when you hear the stats that every 2 seconds in this country someone needs blood.
Yes. 45,000 units a day in the United States, and 16 million units every year are needed. So yes, and there's more and more needed. And remember, there's a shelf life to blood. So even though you donate it, it doesn't stay around very long, and then you have to replace it.
Speaking of that, I know there has been some study in the past about synthetic blood or making blood have a longer shelf life. Where has that gone?
Yeah, so synthetic blood continues to be studied, but right now we don't have a good alternative other than our own natural blood. The synthetic blood in the past has caused strokes. It just hasn't worked the way good old red blood cells work.
Why can't we preserve it in some way so that it does have a longer shelf life?
Well, again, why can't you preserve any natural product longer? We can certainly look at it, and there's ways to do it, but at the end of the day, there's a shelf life to anything natural.
And again, back to, obviously, you don't want to end up where you look in the fridge and you don't have blood for what you need to do.
Yeah, well, so the labs are really important to the whole hospital, and the blood bank is probably the biggest area of security and safety because they want to make sure the right blood gets to the right person of the right type. And so I really respect the Department of Hematology that protects this precious commodity.
Didn't a lot change through the AIDS epidemic in terms of blood and
absolutely.
donation?
Absolutely. You know, we did not know what AIDS was or HIV, and that's when I started my training back in the late 80s and 90s, and things have really, really changed. As a matter of fact, hepatitis C was called hepatitis non-A, non-B when I went to medical school, so we're even learning more about the hepatitises.
Changing all the time,
Yes.
yeah. Any message for folks who may be considering blood donation?
Yeah, please do it. I mean, it is really, like I said, 1 hour out of your day. It is just one little stick in the arm, and you can truly save a life. You can save a life of a friend, a family member. We never know when we wake up if we're going to need blood. And even myself, when I had COVID, I received plasma transfusion of convalescent antibodies. When I never knew I was going to get blood, but I needed it, and I really, to this day, am eternally grateful for those people that sent antibodies to me to save my life.
That was interesting. That was a treatment early on. Is that still being used for COVID?
No, because we have better treatments now, but that was the treatment then.
Yeah, well, we're glad it helped you, and thank you for being here. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for WGAL 8 in Focus. For all of us at WGAL, I'm Susan Shapiro, and join us again next Saturday night at 7 o'clock for WGAL 8 in Focus, right after NBC Nightly News. And you can watch each episode of In Focus, plus WGAL's latest newscasts, original programming, and more. Just download the Very Local app and stream for free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV.